Have you ever felt like reality is playing tricks on you? Have you ever gone through the day and conversations just don't feel right? Your thoughts and emotions, maybe even your sense of self, are just a little bit off, not quite real? Well, I'm glad to say that it's not all in your head. In fact, 1500 years ago, Buddhists noticed the exact same thing. Not only did they predict this problem, but they found ways to fix it, ways to heal and protect both our mental and our spiritual selves. The promulgator of these teachings was a man by the name of Vasubandhu, and his school of Buddhism was known as Yogacara, also known as the mind only school of Buddhism. Now, Yogacara teaches that everything we experience is a construction of our consciousness. There's no external world per se that's independent of our mind. Our reality is simply our perceptions, our interpretations, and our mental imprints all coming together to create a mental image that we think is reality. Now, of course, this begs a couple of questions. First off, if everything is an illusion, if everything is not real per se, who cares? Why not be a hedonist? Why not chase pleasure at the expense of everything else? Why not harm ourselves and other people? And the answer to this question is quite simple. First, we need to understand that we in the West think of reality via the subject-object duality. In other words, there's a subject, us, here. We're real. And there's object out there. And the object is the illusion. And in that case, yes, it makes perfect sense to not really care about the illusory thing, be it a video game or a movie. It's not real, so it doesn't matter. However, what Yogacara teaches, and what you probably have experienced, is that we ourselves are part of the illusion. We are also not real. And more importantly, there is no escape from the unreality of reality. There's no universe we can go to, no parallel dimension. Moving to another town doesn't help. We are part of the mental images, the perceptions, and the interpretations that make up what we collectively as human beings know as reality. We can think of our situation like living in an apartment. Sure, maybe we don't own the apartment, maybe we're not on the lease even. But if we live here, why wouldn't we make a bed or buy one so we have a place to sleep at night? Why wouldn't we put food in the refrigerator so we have something to eat? This is the situation that we're in, and this is how Buddhists see the world. We're stuck in this illusion. We might as well make the best of it. More than that, however, even if we accept that our reality isn't quite real, where does the illusion come from? Is the next question. And the answer to that is that our reality is the result of our five senses, sight, hearing, smell, etc., coming together, along with a sixth sense, which is our mind, our thoughts, and our emotion. And all of this sensory input comes together to create what we think of, both of ourselves and the world. So you could think of it like a movie projection on a screen. Thousands of individual pictures being sent through a projector at a very high speed so that to our minds it looks like one single image, one film, one movie. The same thing is happening with us in every moment of every day. Our sight, our hearing, our smell, our thoughts are all coming together. and sending information together so quickly that to us, it looks like one single reality. It's illusory, meaning it has no permanent sense of self, but that doesn't necessarily stop it from being real, any more than we would say a movie is unreal. It clearly exists, however, because we understand it's a movie, it changes our relationship to what we see on the screen. We don't get quite so freaked out if someone gets harmed or something bad happens. Imagine if we had that same relationship with our everyday lives. So what are the mental health implications of this teaching? Well, first, we need to recognize that our world is a set of mental projections. Our anxiety, our self-doubt are all distorted perceptions of our reality. Doesn't mean they're not real. It doesn't mean that we don't do anything about them, but it changes our relationship with the information. So, for example, if we send someone a text and we ask, "How are you doing today?" and they respond, "I'm fine." Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with that answer, but potentially we could spin out a lot of mental perceptions, a lot of interpretations, a lot of stories. They're mad at me. Something's wrong. Did I say something incorrect when I spoke to them last time? Do they not like me? None of that was transmitted through the text message they sent, "I'm fine," but our minds create those projections. If we understand, however, that they're projections, well, we just change our relationship to them. Instead of spinning out of control, we simply respond back, "Hey, can you give me more information?" Also, we can decondition the storehouse of our mind. If we notice that we're going through life and we have a very negative, very dark outlook, one of the things we can do is recondition our minds, planting karmic seeds of loving kindness, compassion in our minds so that the mental projections we create are more healthy and life-affirming. One funny way I heard a teacher talk about this once is, if you're sad, don't listen to sad music. And it's a little silly, but it works, because if we're already projecting that mental image, that negative image onto the world, don't listen to music that reinforces it. Instead, listen to something, do something that will recondition our mind so we have a more positive outlook. For my own mind, when I find that I'm in a little bit of a funk, I find that doing work outside can be very helpful. Spending time with my animals will do things that will recondition my mental state, plant those karmic seeds of positivity so that now I'm creating positive mental images instead of negative ones. And then also, we need to empower our own self-awareness. We need to practice right mindfulness. And what this comes down to, quite simply, is that even though we understand our reality is an illusion, there are times when we should lean in to that illusion, and there are times when we should lean out of that illusion. In other words, there are times when we need to remind ourselves that reality isn't real. And there are other times when we need to act like reality is very real. I'll give you an example. If we look outside the window and there's a blizzard, snow's coming down, we can't see more than a foot in front of our face, the roads are iced over, that's not the time to think that life is an illusion. YOLO. Let's jump in the car and go for a joyride. No, that's the time we need to lean into the illusion. Okay, the snow is real, the ice is real, I'm going to stay inside until this storm passes. I'm going to enjoy some hot cocoa. On the flip side, if we are having a conversation with a person and they're being rude, they're saying hateful things, and we feel ourselves being anxious, being angry, being sad as a result of this verbal abuse that we're experiencing, well, that might be a good time to lean out of the illusion, to remind ourselves that those words they're saying are really just vibrations in the air. They don't actually carry any weight, and thus we should not allow ourselves to be harmed by them. Not to say that they should be saying those things, but by changing our relationship to the words, reminding ourselves that they're not inherently true, that we are not a bad person just because they say so, that in fact they themselves are only mental perception or mental projections of our mind, that they only have the importance we give them, and if they're going to treat us badly, well, maybe we should give them less importance. By reminding ourselves of that and leaning out of the illusion in that moment, we can protect our mental and spiritual selves from harm. Now, to be clear, this is not denial. This is not covering our eyes or sticking our heads in the sand. Quite the opposite. This is radical responsibility. We're not broken. We're just caught in a loop of conditioned perceptions, and we are choosing to take control of those perceptions, to rewrite the loops when they no longer serve us. By understanding the illusory nature of reality, understanding that reality isn't always real, we can lean into it or we can lean out of it based on what serves us best in that moment. Amitabha.